Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of the New Year Six podcast. Today I'll be doing my final Week 1 preview. It'll be Clemson at Duke, the Labor Day matchup. Only game on Monday to wrap up a wonderful Week 1 of the football season. So just like my other previews, just going to take the team, highs, lows, everything that they're going to need, breakout players against each opponent, and what it's going to take for each team to win. So starting off with Clemson, as they are on the road this week, looking at what they do well. From a roster perspective, there's not a lot of new faces. Clemson does not use the transfer portal. It takes a while for those younger players to step up and make a name for themselves in the program. It's usually sophomore, junior, senior year. So not a lot of new faces there. So I'm going to focus on, straight to what they've done well in the past that they're going to need to continue to do well against Duke, and that would be scoring in the red zone. Clemson last year had a top 5 red zone offense, and that's with DJ Uyunglele at quarterback last year. Now with Cade Klubnik, the offense may change a little bit, but the offense in the red zone needs to stay persistent. It needs to stay aggressive. You're going to rely on Will Shipley there. You're going to use Bo Collins as a receiver. There are options for Clemson to score, and they need to continue to score. They were very good at it last year, and if they're up against a Duke defense that really isn't that good in the red zone, Duke is 99th last year in red zone defense. That's not that great. So if Clemson can capitalize on the fact that their offense is good inside the 20 and Duke's defense is not that good inside the 20, Clemson's going to run away with this one. So that's a key factor for Clemson. They got to get that production in the red zone early this season against Duke, and then throughout their season just continuing to churn at the level that they had last year. I guess sticking on the what they've done well point of view, they're very good on third down offense. So 12th in the country last year in third down percentage. While they have the ball, you got to see more of that against Duke. So it's those short fields where you have a guy like Will Shipley who can just run for 5. Getting a first down on third down becomes a lot easier. So Clemson needs to continue to churn on third down. They don't have to go for it every play on first and second down. Just be that game manager that's going to win you games if you're Clemson. So third down has been their friend in the past on offense. That needs to continue to be their friend this year against Duke and everyone else on their schedule. Duke is a good Week 1 test and a good barometer for what Clemson has in store for them. If they just come out and kill Duke, then we know this Clemson team is going to be back to the height of Dabo. If they struggle against Duke, questions are going to be asked. They're going to say, "Is this it? Has Dabo?" Is Dabo done? If he can barely beat Duke, what's he going to do against FSU? What's he going to do against UNC? What's he going to do against Pitt or NC State or Louisville or the other teams in their conference? What's he going to do against South Carolina in Week 13? So, those two things combined are a recipe for Clemson's success. So they're not the most prolific offense of all time. Middle of the pack as a passing offense last year, they were 66th. Rushing offense was a little bit better at 47th. That one really surprised me. When you think of Clemson, you think of that rush attack. And it really wasn't all. It wasn't spectacular. It was above average. So if they're good on third down and they score in the red zone, so basically making the most of their opportunities, they're going to be fine against this Duke team. What I want to see Clemson do well or do better than they've done last year is that passing offense has to step up. When you think of Clemson, it's really like an old school SEC team. I know they're in the ACC, but it's, we're going to beat you on the ground and we're going to have a great defense. And Clemson as a whole has had some very good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but that's not the image I think of when I think of Clemson. I think of pound it, and then that defense is going to kill you. Clemson's defense last year was very average to below average. Now, with the exception of the D-line. That D-line killed last year. But the passing defense, 76th in the country. So below average, below the Clemson standard. So if they step up and they play a Duke team with a good quarterback, Riley Leonard came in and kind of shocked the world last year, and the offense at Duke runs through him. It's a passing offense last year at Duke that was middle of the pack, but is probably only getting stronger year over year. So if that Clemson passing defense and that DB unit are ready to step up in a week 1 challenge like this, then it's a good indicator of what the season will look like for Clemson. So they got to shut Riley Leonard down. They got to play up to their talent level. They got to do what's necessary for Clemson to win, and just don't get beat out by players that are less skilled than you, especially through the air. So that's what I'm looking for from Clemson. Clemson, keep scoring in the red zone. Work the ball on third down, and then just lock it down as a DB, lock it down as a corner, lock it down as a safety, and make sure that they're not beating you through the air. Duke, on the other hand, Duke is in kind of an interesting state, at least in my eyes. Again, they also don't really use the transfer portal. They've used it more than Clemson, but it's more so the fact that Clemson is stubborn and they don't like change. Duke has the unfortunate barrier of entry of the academic rigor. So it's the private schools. It's Stanford, Vanderbilt, Northwestern. Schools like that are harder for the transfer portal because you have guys that, to quote the great Cardell Jones, they don't come here to play school, and they can't end up at a school like Duke academically. So it's tough from that lens to get any and all players in due to the academia that looms over the program. But they have used the transfer portal this year, and I'm interested to see how those picks fit, specifically in the secondary. So last year as a passing defense, Duke was 105th in the country. So not a prolific defense, and when your head coach is Mike Elko, who was a defensive coordinator at Texas A&M and ran some very talented defenses over there, I would expect more. I would expect Duke to be, more of a defensive juggernaut than, the offensive, side of the ball that they kind of leaned on a little bit more last year. But the guys they're bringing in, Al Blades comes in from Miami, Jeremiah Lewis comes in from Northwestern, so that's a guy who came to play school. Those additions, those plug-and-play players, especially, knowing that they're grad transfers, those are pretty big, additions for this Duke secondary. Those are guys who have been playing at a high level on a high-level team. Northwestern, not really high level, but, Miami, historically speaking, is a power program. I know they're kind of down right now, but thinking of it through that lens, they've both played in some very big games. And instead of leaning on younger guys who haven't had that experience, take a flyer on some guys that are gonna spice up that secondary for 1 year, get those younger guys ready for next year, and save a year of eligibility. So I'm very interested to see what those two do, how they blend with the rest of that secondary, and what steps the secondary takes to improve year over year. If it does make those steps and they are able to shut Cade Klubnik down, Duke's going to be in it. I know I'm not high on Duke this year from from my ACC conference preview video, but it's not due to lack of talent. It's due to the schedule being harder than it was last year and it being tougher for Duke to repeat, knowing that there's a larger target on their back. But if they can play with these big dogs out of week 1, it's going to be a good sign of what's to come for Duke this year. Other than that, talking about what Duke did well last year is just keeping possession of the ball. They had the number 2 turnover margin in all of college football last year, which means Riley Leonard is not throwing picks. He's not giving them anything easy. It means the defense is making the plays that they need to, and that's much easier said than done. So, against this Clemson defense, which is going to be tough to beat, don't give them anything for free. Make those smart reads if you're Leonard. If you do have the opportunity to take things away from Clemson, and you do have the opportunity to steal a possession from them, you got to take advantage of it. So those two things combined are going to be key elements for Duke this year. they're gonna be battling Clemson from the start to the end, and that turnover margin is going to be crucial. If you beat Clemson in the turnover game, and Clemson last year was again pretty average when it came to turnovers, they were 75th in all of college, so probably around the 0 mark, maybe dipping into the negative. But knowing that this is a Duke specialty, if they can showcase why they're good at it again, it will give Clemson some problems. So looking at Duke secondary, looking at the turnover margin that they had last year, and then one of the things that really needs to improve for Duke this year, and especially against Clemson, we talked about Clemson's third down offense being spectacular. Duke's third down defense was horrific. They were 111th on third down as a defense last year. And I know, I didn't bring it up, when I was talking about Clemson, but I'm sure they see that number and they're licking their lips. They know that it's something they're already very good at, and they get to capitalize on it against a team that's very bad at it. If Duke comes out the gate and makes drastic improvement to this third down defense, even if it gets them to 60th or 65th, like somewhere right in the middle, that's a big step in the right direction for this team. So that's the way I'm looking. I want to see Duke do better on third down as a defense. I don't care if it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 12. They need to make stops. And again, this is a coach that comes from a defensive background. He has that ability to scheme up and recruit and all of those things. And it's just a matter of putting it together. So that's the way I look at it. I think if Duke comes out and they're aggressive on third down, they're dominant in that way. They don't give out any freebies in the turnover, and the DBs show up. Duke's going to be in it, and they could win. We go into every game knowing that any of these teams could win. Now the odds are favored one way more than the other, but if Duke executes perfectly in all three of those categories, they're going to have a very legitimate shot to beat Clemson. So with that in mind, it's time to make my official prediction. So Clemson is the favorite. Right now, I'm going to go with the total real quick because I see 56. It could change very quickly, and then I'm seeing a favorite by Duke for 13. I'm just going to check that real quick to make sure that's still accurate. Okay, 1 second. All right, no, 12.5 and then 55.5. So those are the new numbers here. So it's Clemson favorite by 12.5, and then the total is 55.5. So I am going to officially pick Clemson to win this game. I don't think that's much of a surprise. A 12.5 line is a pretty substantial line. I am going to pick Duke to cover, and I'm going to take the under on 55.5. And I think this is going to be a very, very close one. I don't think Clemson walks away from this game feeling dominant and confident about what they have going out for the rest of the year. I could be wrong, but I really think that Duke's going to give them problems in week 1. So official score prediction, Clemson 28 and Duke 26. So I'm going under, and I'm going that Duke covers. I really think this is going to be an early quote-unquote trap game of sorts. It's not going to, I still think Clemson's going to win, but it's not going to be to the margin that their fans are happy with. When they think of Duke, they think, oh, that's the basketball school. We got to beat them by 35. That is the Duke of a decade ago. That's the Duke of 5 years ago, but it is not the Duke of today. So I think Clemson wins. It's going to be a tight one, and it's going to be a wonderful cap off to a great week 1. So that's all I've got for Clemson Duke. That is my last preview video of the week. Let me know what you think. What are your keys to the game for Clemson Duke? Who's got the edge in your eyes? And yeah, we're at the finish line here. So it's Wednesday night. Games start for week 1 tomorrow. Got some fantastic ones. I'm going to be watching as many as humanly possible over the next 5 days. But I can't wait for the start of this week. You can't wait for the start of this week. And we're going to make it happen. So thank you all for your time. Leave your thoughts below, and tune in next time.